In the summer of 1936, the Great Lakes Exposition glittered on the shores of Cleveland. Amid the steam of popcorn and the cheerful notes of a calliope, fairgoers were invited to a special exhibit inside the police pavilion. But this was no ordinary attraction. Behind glass, a row of chalk-white faces stared back with empty eyes. These were not sculptures. They were death masks cast from the unidentified victims of a killer who haunted the city's ravines. A butcher, known only as the Cleveland Torso Murderer, was dismembering bodies with surgical precision and scattering the parts through the gully called Kingsbury Run. Panic gripped the shanty towns and rail yards. The city's famed safety director, Eliot Ness, stepped forward, promising to restore order. But in the morgue, a grim challenge emerged. How do you identify victims who lived on the margins of society? Many were drifters, living in camps and boxcars, their fingerprints lost and their histories erased. Some were missing their heads entirely. With no DNA, no databases, and few leads, investigators turned to a desperate public plea. Attendants carefully oiled the skin of the dead, laid gauze and smoothed on wet plaster. Once hardened, the casts preserved the last quiet expressions of the nameless. These masks were then put on display at the fair, a crude form of crowdsourcing decades before the internet. The city hoped that a familiar jawline or the curve of a cheek might spark a memory in a passing stranger. It was a grim spectacle, turning a civic celebration into a coroner's hallway. The exhibit forced a difficult question. Where does the search for justice end and morbid curiosity begin? Was this a vital public service, or was the city simply selling tickets to its own morgue? The torso murderer was never brought to trial. The killings eventually trailed off like fog over the river. But that haunting display foreshadowed the world we know now.
Today, forensic artists sculpt faces in software, and we share images online, still wrestling with the same ethical lines. The masks survive, preserved in the Cleveland Police Museum, a silent testament to the forgotten. They remind us that while our tools have grown smarter, our fundamental burden remains human, to remember the lost before they vanish a second time. And among those preserved faces is a small detail investigators could never shake, something that still points, faintly, toward the riverbank.